Some brands offer you low finance, or cashback, or servicing.
Renault don't do ors. We do ands. The Renault Kadjar with 1.91% APR and €1,000 cashback and 3 years servicing, saving you thousands. Renault, the brand with the ands. Visit your local Renault dealer. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required. Subject to lending criteria. See Renault.ie.
Previously on Coffee with Kenobi.
I don't know, I was just so proud to show my family, hey, look, here's this textbook. I wrote a little piece in it, and I'm on the same page with George Lucas. That's probably never going to happen again, but it's pretty wild.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome. That's you're getting equal billing there.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, something like that.
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Live from the Coffee with Kenobi studios in Central Illinois, we are on the air with Ryder Waldron and Matt Moore. Tom will join us for news. Jeff Dwoskin will join us later to discuss Star Wars and social media, and we will talk about the 40th anniversary of Star Wars. It's pretty great when I look at the calendar and things continue to work out for us. The day the show is released will be the 40th anniversary of Star Wars. We're going to be talking a lot about that. Before I jump into anything, though, I want to introduce my guest co-host for the day. Joining me, of course, is the Idiots Array co-host and CWK blogger Ryder Waldron, and Comics with Kenobi co-host, CWK writer, and all-around comics guru, Matt Moore. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, thanks for having me. I am thrilled to be here.
As am I. I appreciate the invitation. And Ryder, it's nice to be here with you as well. We don't do this near as often as we should.
That's right. We met in Anaheim, or in Orlando, and that was the first time we met.
Exactly, in the flesh at least. So
that's right.
Great? I was putting that together. Now that we're having more and more shows and getting more of a chance to chat with one another, we've actually seen each other face to face on numerous occasions. So I think that kind of adds to the goodness of all the awesomeness going on in the Star Wars world, I would say.
Exactly. That was one of my favorite things about Celebration Orlando, was not just, waiting in lines and trying to get wristbands, but also meeting everybody for the first time in a long time. And that's what makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Also, the people are what make it fun. The panels are great, and all the Star Wars stuff is awesome. But talking to other Star Wars fans and friends is the best part of these celebrations.
Absolutely. I want to start before we jump into talk about the Variety. Not the Friday, but the Vanity Fair article that is setting the Twitterverse ablaze. I received a package from Hasbro today. I wanted to just give them a quick thank you. And it is the Legacy Pack. It's the Star Wars Darth Vader 40th Anniversary figure Black Series that we talked about last week with Chris Perillo and Dennis Keithley. And it's the one with Vader, and it comes with the stand. And it's really, really nice. It's interesting because what they're basically doing is they want us to take these figures out of the package, which is already kind of making the back of my neck make these weird twitching things. And they want us to do a hashtag Hasbro Toy Pick, where we can basically replicate scenes from the film, from A New Hope, of course, with these figures. And I got to tell you, I think it's a really cool opportunity. I'm hoping to put a lot of it on social media. I hope other people get involved too. I'm still running into this issue of, do I really want to open this thing or not? What would you guys do?
Well, I used to be like you, Dan, and I had all of my, the Phantom Menace figures, like all over my wall in packages, and they still are. I won't open those because it's been so long, but lately I've been buying action figures. That's usually what I collect, and I open them pretty much immediately. And I know it seems just terrible to do, but it's so much fun to get them out and play with them and touch them, and yeah, so I say set them free.
You want to let Darth Vader be. You want to set him free. He's got to get out and experience the world. He's got hundreds of thousands of other people to subjugate and to torture and to kill. He's got an empire to protect it, and he can't do it inside of a box. No, it's my thing. I like to play with the stuff, and I'm not an avid collector of the toys, but I will go through and buy certain items that I recall from when I was a kid growing up, because I'm part of the original Star Wars generation. And unfortunately, while I did at one point have every Star Wars toy ever made through 1984,
Wow.
They were all burned in the Waldo Canyon fire of 2012 in Colorado Springs. So I literally had nothing left. So I've using this as an opportunity to sort of cherry pick things that just I had fond memories about. Case in point, at Celebration Orlando, I found a Bespin Cloud car for $20. So I grabbed that, and it's now sitting on my son's shelf, and he and his sister play with it all the time, which is great fun.
And then not only is that cool that you get to have it back, but you get to basically enjoy it through the eyes of your children, and that's got to make it so much better.
Oh, exactly, because that's what the Star Wars toys are for, and that's what Star Wars is for. And as George Lucas himself said, he made it for kids, and I just happen to be a 47-year-old kid who still likes it.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. I'm right with you. And I think you both convinced me. I'm probably gonna have to open it. As we're talking, I'm realizing that I am the antagonist in Toy Story 2. That's
yeah. Well, and I think it was a Coffee with Kenobi episode. I don't know how, it was probably a couple of years ago that I was listening, and I can't remember who the guest was, but somebody made the point about, they're not fun unless you open them. And I thought, I at that point I was not opening any toys, and then I thought I'm depriving my children of this fun. And so we opened up an X-Wing, we opened up all the action figures, and they tore right through them, and they loved it. So you can't make memories like that if they're in the package.
That's true.
No, you can't. Although in my defense, I will say this. The stuff that I have bought, I did actually save the original packaging, so it's all up in a box in the attic. So,
I do that too.
The thinking was that if we ever, when next we move, I could just box it all up again and make it easier to transport. But there's also that little part of me because I don't collect for numerical value or with the idea that I'm going to put anybody through college on this stuff. At least not with the Star Wars stuff. But it's nice. It's nice every now and then just say, we can just, somebody will see something on the shelf. So, oh, that's really great. It really, that's so hard to find. And, well, here, take it home and box it up for you. It's yours.
It opens conversation too. And when I keep stuff in package, it's only because I like the aesthetic look of it. I feel like it's kind of a museum quality. So when I'm looking around in the studio, and the borders in this room are all action figures in package, starting with the Kenner Darth Vader sealed. So I guess if I can look at that and that's still in the package, I guess I can open this because it's brand new. So.
Oh yeah.
So before we there's just so much to talk about in so little time. I do want to mention that I finally pulled the trigger and got the Han Solo and Carbonite fridge from ThinkGeek. Is it worth the money for it? I don't think so. But it is fun. Right now I've got it behind the microphone here, and I've got the night mode on, so he's all glowing, and it's pretty cool. You can only fit, if you put the shells in, you can only fit about 6 water bottles in there, and it's plastic. So I guess I thought it would be a little bit more solid. I'm still glad I have it because it's just a very unique collectible. Starts some fun conversation, as we just discussed, but I guess if I had my druthers and I was a millionaire, I'd rather have the Sideshow one on the wall, but I don't, so I'm going to deal with this for now, and that's okay. I'm good with that.
If it's any consolation, every now and then I do pull up that big Sideshow life-size replica, and I get so far as to putting in the debit card information, and and I'm almost pressing, and I've done this like 4 or 5 times. I'm just like,
I wonder if we should just all put our money in.
There's just
and then we'll just mail it to each other once a month.
Yeah. How much is that now? How much is Han Solo now in Carbonite?
Okay, six or $7 grand. Yeah, I just figured there's just no way I could justify this expense to my wife. There's just no absolute way. I do very much, and she tolerates the Star Wars thing, which is big for her because her thing is Star Trek.
So normally we do.
But still, I've got this spot on the wall here in my study that it would look really good on. So.
Oh,
if you buy that, you might be hanging on the wall next to him. So
exactly.
Ooh, that's true. That's true.
So let's start the show with the new issue of Variety, specifically the 4 covers that are featuring The Last Jedi, as well as the accompanying article. We received some information on the upcoming film, including a new location, a character name, and new images. So let's go ahead and take them in order. Just real quick, kind of first thoughts, gentlemen. Let's start with the new location. What we do know is that it's Canto Bight, I believe that's called. Canto Bight, a glittering casino city, as it's described. Interestingly enough, speaking of locations for this film, despite maybe speculation and rumor and water cooler Star Wars talk, the opening scene had to be recreated because J.J. Abrams did not film any dialogue between Rey and Luke Skywalker at the end of The Force Awakens. So they had to painstakingly recreate everything about that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Luke had to, or Mark Hamill had to grow his beard and his hair and everything just exactly the same. And that would be tough to recreate that exactly. And with as nitpicky as Star Wars fans can be, you know that they're going to go through that scene with a fine-tooth comb after we see it for the first time.
But at the same time, it's not like they're hurting for any sort of reference points or material. So
right.
It's just a matter of doing the freeze frame on the 4K Ultra HD version of the print. So, I do have to admit, I did enjoy reading how Mark Hamill was, showing his age because, look, they gave the other crew in the cast like 30 or 45 minutes to get up the hill, but I was allotted an hour and a half and was having to take these 10 or 15 minute breaks. And, and he was I liked how self-deprecating it was because, as the writer David Camp pointed out, he is a sexagenarian. So, I mean,
yes.
It is some effort. And I've been there. So, I can vouch for how hilly and, it is very steep. It's very hard. It's a good hike up there. So, I will never fault him for having to take a few breaks making that hike.
No. Any thoughts on the Casino City idea?
Well, it reminded me of the Revenge of the Sith at the opera scene. It also, when I first saw it, kind of reminded me like of a bunch of donors at like a political campaign, maybe to Snoke. I don't know. Who knows? But they seemed like kind of kind of a crooked bunch, I would say. Maybe they're a bunch of good people, but they didn't feel like that to me when I first saw the pictures.
I saw these pictures, and the first thing I thought was, this must be the galactic 1%.
Yeah, and you're right on, especially based on the article where they say, so much of Star Wars is a used universe, so we're going to try to show like kind of the opposite of that, which we really haven't seen in Star Wars. That's very much there. We also got a bunch of character names. We found out that in some scenes that were being screened that the director Rian Johnson was looking at, there was a gunner. Her name is Paige, and she was being coached by Poe in this particular scene. We have Benicio del Toro, who's called DJ by the filmmakers, but apparently he's going to be unnamed in the film. We've got Vice Admiral Holdo, which is a prominent officer in the Resistance, and that is, of course, why is her name escaping me now? I can picture her from Jurassic.
Laura Dern. Laura Dern.
In this beautiful gown with the purple hair. They made a funny joke to Pablo, which we'll talk about later, or asked him kind of what he thought, is that her real hair? And he said only, what did he say, only her beautician knows for sure, something to that effect.
But don't bump.
Showing that she's human. And then we have Rose, which we already knew, but now we have her last name. It's Tico, Rose Tico, and she is also the sister of Paige, the gunner that was being coached by Poe.
So that's kind of cool. That's kind of nice to see that we have a sort of another sibling relationship setting up in the film.
Yes.
Some of these character reveals, as you said, a lot of this isn't new if you've been following the water cooler talk and some of the news sites, but these names are new. That picture of Benicio del Toro, I had to do a double take because at first glance I thought, is that Tom Waits, the wonderful singer songwriter, and of course it's not, but it's definitely vintage Benicio, and I love that he's called DJ because he does actually. He does spin, so I mean, it's kind of an apt working title for his character.
He looks younger, I think, than he has in a while. At least I don't know if it's the makeup or the lighting or what, but he definitely he looks good.
He does look good. I mean, he's I don't know what it is about Benicio, but I mean, we were when I was living in Berlin, we bumped into him in a restaurant. This was just before the Wolfman came out, and I think it was the Berlin Film Festival was going on, and he's a striking dude. I mean, and he's a handsome man, and
I forgot about the werewolf film that he was in.
Yeah.
I
mean, it was an awesome movie. I'm surprised it didn't get as much traction as it did, but I digress. I like the way he's set up in this because it's I'm getting sort of kind of a I hate to throw around sort of a EU names here, but almost like a Dash Rendar kind of vibe off of him.
Good, yeah.
And I'll be curious. I'm curious. I'm really curious to know exactly what he's going to be doing. Like, what kind of operator he is. Is he playing both sides, one side? Is he just working for himself? Who knows?
He definitely seems mysterious, just based on what little we've seen about him. He almost is like the Funhouse Mirror version of Poe Dameron.
Yeah, I thought his picture was one of the cooler ones. He's one of those guys that the older he gets, the cooler he gets, kind of like Harrison Ford maybe. But I remember seeing him in License to Kill, or Matt Moore. Yeah, I mean, that guy's as cool as it gets. But I remember seeing him in License to Kill, the James Bond movie, and he was such a greaseball, just slimy sucker, and he always plays such a good bad guy. But in this, I could see him being one of those guys that has no allegiances. He just kind of plays the Han Solo role, where he's kind of, he's on his own side, and that's it. But man, he sure looked cool in that picture. Yeah, he is a good looking dude. You're right, Matt.
He was a little underwhelming in Guardians, but that's because he really wasn't given much to do, I suppose. Let's look real quickly at the new images that were released with the entire article. There's a number of staggering, breathtaking images. I mean, the one of Daisy Ridley posing with the lightsaber, very, very striking feature. Just the way that it's art. I mean, it's Annie Leibovitz, right? So it's artistic, it's beautiful. The lighting, and she just looks very strong in it, which I found wonderful. My favorite, though, personally, is the picture of Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher together. Just the way that they are kind of embracing you. That was a really, really touching. I thought that was an absolutely beautiful image.
Yeah, I think that was the one that set the internet on fire today, and that was really cool. There, just the colors in that. I love Leia's gown or robe or whatever that is. Mark Hamill's black or brown leather glove over his fake hand, and yeah, that is a cool picture. And that's kind of like the scene that I expected them to have, or expect them to have, maybe when they reunite in Episode 8, if they do something like that.
I really do hope they reunite in the film. There could be a riot in every theater if they don't.
Yeah, in that article, Mark Hamill was interesting. He had his own thoughts about how they should have reunited in The Force Awakens, but it wasn't to be.
I enjoyed that.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I thought that was really good, and it makes a lot of sense. I think the way he was describing, how he would have done it, it was really nostalgic, but in a way, it paid homage to the original core trio and quartet, if you count Chewbacca. Mm-hmm. And I think it really would have added a whole lot of heft and resonance to Han's passing. Spoilers if you've not seen The Force Awakens. That's kind of that had me thinking all afternoon, like, oh, that would have been, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But I mean, I'm not by any means selling short the actual what was in the finished product, but that was what he said was very intriguing.
It was interesting. It would have really been quite a gasp out loud moment in theater, but I also feel like it'd be a Deus Ex Machina, because if Luke shows up, he's Luke, so there's really no peril anymore, is there? Then there's no exciting confrontation with the threat of Kylo Ren and a former stormtrooper and a scavenger who has no training with a lightsaber. So I think obviously that's one of those strategies behind why they constructed the way they did. But I do love the notion of, I've lamented so much the fact that we didn't have any publicity stills of Hamill, Ford, and Fisher together from The Force Awakens. I really think that would have been wonderful. We'll never get to have that.
No, I mean, we can make do with those from the original trilogy, of course. But right. You are right, Dan. It would have, I think, probably distracted from the story, and keeping Luke as the hidden reveal, or I guess the MacGuffin, if you will, until the very end, really gave The Force Awakens a lot of oomph, and it really gave us that cliffhanger-inspired ending, which had everybody walking out of the theater, in shock from Han's passing, but also going, "Oh, I can't wait for The Last Jedi. I can't wait to see what happens next with Luke. At least we know he's alive, he's there, and he's got his lightsaber."
I mean, when you see Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember looking at Corey when I saw that for the first time, and I gasped. I'm like, this is Luke. He's back. So he's the very first thing that hits you. He's the very last thing that hits you. So that's a nice little bookend, but I definitely wish it would have been, we could have had a little more of some sort of interaction between them. But hey, the narrative is as it is, and as you said, man, we're not complaining. We're pretty happy with it. The only other thing I want to point out before we jump on to the next segment is there was a story group insight from the Vanity Fair article that I had not realized. And I'm going to just quote here from the Vanity Fair article. What the story group does not do, Hart said, is impose plot point mandates on the filmmakers. Johnson told me he was surprised at how much leeway he was given to cook up the action of Episode 8 from scratch. The preset was Episode 7, and that was kind of it, he said. If anything, Johnson wanted more give and take with the Lucasfilm team, so he moved up to San Francisco for about 6 weeks during his writing process, taking office 2 doors down from Hart's, Kiri Hart, that would be in charge of the story group, and meeting with the full group twice a week. I guess when we'd talk to Jordan and other authors and they talk about working with the story group, they say, hey, we make submissions and they make some notes, but they like what we have. They really are giving so much freedom and so much autonomy to all these creative people. And I don't know why that hit me, but I really thought, wow, this is really something. I guess if you wanted to get all anxious, you could say, oh no, what if somebody's going to do something weird that doesn't make sense? Well, that's why there's the 11-person story group. That's the creative net to make sure that everything that comes through is quality. And again, there have been no missteps.
I thought that was interesting too. Oh, sorry, Matt, but I thought that was interesting too. And I think, I'm not really a creative person, a creative writer or anything like that, but to get the most creative people on board, you would think that you would have to give them some leeway and some autonomy, like you said, to actually go with their vision of how things are going to be. I mean, obviously, if they have Luke Skywalker turn into Darth Vader or go to the dark side or something just ridiculous, then somebody's got to jump in and stop that. But I think that these filmmakers that they've hired so far, I know, the people they've hired so far have been responsible. They are very creative. I love J.J. Abrams. I am so excited for what Rian Johnson has. I'm thrilled that he is the director of this. And so I think, by giving them some leeway, more people are willing to sign on. And it's a Star Wars movie, so maybe directors would be lining up anyway. But still, they want a little creative freedom, and I think this is the way to do it for them.
Well, I thought what was telling, particularly in the profile, was what David Camp said about Kathleen Kennedy, noting that Spielberg had given her free range in helping produce E.T., and she wasn't even out of her 20s. And that to me speaks volumes because she knows what's happening now with Star Wars because she's been there. She was under that pressure, and I love the notion, and I love this fact, and I love that he brought this out in the profile, was that she is picking directors whose work she likes, and whose work speaks to her. Rian Johnson is a perfect example of that. I saw Brick in the theaters. His debut film was blown away. Doug Looper. When they announced Colin Trevorrow, as helming Episode 9, I immediately flashed to Safety Not Guaranteed, which is an indie film, but it is so good. I mean, and it's got such great story. So if you've not seen Safety Not Guaranteed, please go, check it out. You can probably get it on Netflix or any of the streaming services. You can, probably get it at Redbox or whatever. But to me, it's a perfect example of how she is using her instinct to tap the right people whom she believes will carry the story forward. And I love this notion because I've always liked the story group because I see them almost as this contemporary guardian of the wills. But a lot of people, especially, if, on the internets, see them as this, this dark, imposing group that, no one, abandon all hope, ye who enter here through these, pass through these gates. And that's not what they are. They're part of this group because, they love this concept. They love this story. They love this saga. And they just want to ensure that it's told well.
Right.
And that's a great mandate to have.
And they love Star Wars as much as we do, probably.
What's that?
I just said they love Star Wars as much as we do, so they don't want it messed up either.
You're exactly right.
Not only do they love it, but they also is how they feed their family, so they're really time with it.
Exactly, and that's one of the things I do like about them is because they're not afraid to engage on social media. Like, for example, there was a lot of debate about the photograph of the creatures, with going, is that horse looking thing a Bothan? And finally, Matt Martin, at Missing Words on Twitter says, 4 of these things, and you show like a werewolf and a cartoon wolf, and this character are not boffins.
Hanna-Barbera cartoon character.
Yeah. And to me, that's the perfect example of how the story group should operate, because they're having fun with it, but they're also very cognizant of the fact of the internal debate going on in the Star Wars community. Like, well, is it or is it? I don't know. Who knows? All I know,
Pablo, the more I realize how much fun he's having with it. I think he also gets a little bit like, all right, enough's enough, which is why.
Oh, you would have to think that that's the case.
But yeah, he's having a good time. I like to picture the story group as the elders from Krypton in Superman 1 and 2 with Christopher Reeve in there.
Except with a better fashion sense.
Exactly. I like doing that. So we're going to go ahead and take a break. That was a fun start. Went a little bit longer than I expected, but honestly, I don't know how it could not. We could easily do the entire show just on this, but there's so much more Star Wars, so we'll take our break. And when we come back, we're going to talk with Jeff Dwoskin about Star Wars and social media. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
You're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee with Kenobi is sponsored by the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and much more. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. A big reason for the success of our show is our CWK Patreon contributors, including Jason Hall, Dennis Keithley, Angela Souse, Aaron Harris, David Strutt, Mediocre Jedi, BJ Smith, Nick Deco, Adam Leonard, Mark Suter, Mike Audette, Eric Struthers, Jared Cantor, and Swara Sala. It's a monthly donation that goes towards show expenses, equipment, and travel, makes a huge difference in the production and reach of our show. Plus, there are a number of incentives that help you to get more involved. For example, a donation of $10 a month provides you with a link to an exclusive Google Hangout. We'll have our own Star Wars discussion. And the first one of those is going to happen next week, so stay tuned for that if you're already a Patreon contributor of $10 or more. Patreon contributors who donate $35 or more will get the newest show before anyone else. Increments of $50 or more for a specific amount of time will get you access to all the previous rewards, and depending on your donation, we'll guarantee that you co-host with me and another guest co-host for anywhere from one show for 1 month, all the way to an entire month, which would be 4 shows of co-hosting CWK. Plus, you may be eligible for a t-shirt, a coffee mug, or both. Check out the link on our webpage or the show notes for more information. Jeff Dwoskin joins us now. I met Jeff at Pinewood Studios. We had Mike Rodeo on a few weeks ago. And Jeff is also one of the reporters that was flown over there by Gillette. And Jeff and I instantly hit it off. We actually, you were the one who videoed when I was getting my that professional grooming advice from that guy that was talking about how I should grow my beard and stuff like that. Remember that?
I do remember. I think he told us both we were using the wrong hair gel.
That's correct.
Yeah. So.
And so we were both dashing. I remember that. Whether it actually happened or not, I do remember it.
Yeah. Something about us being the most handsome fellas he'd seen in London in a long time.
That's true. Yeah. I tear up when I think about it, mostly because we're not telling the truth. So let's talk about the state of fandom on social media, specifically Twitter. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, besides the fact that you're just a lot of fun to talk to, your Twitter account is amazing. You're the CEO of the Hashtag Roundup. You're a blogger for the HuffPost. And you see a lot of stuff. In fact, today you were commenting on Spider-Man. And apparently a lot of people are complaining about his costume.
Yeah, it's a little Iron Man-ish. Seems to be a side effect of it just being part of the MCU. I kind of dig it.
Well, it's all related tangentially in some way, in some manner, given the number of Star Wars toys that are in Peter Parker's room in Spider-Man: Homecoming. But I think the costume is it's derivative. It's a Stark product, and so of course it's not like a Iron Spider level the way it was in Civil War, but it's I think it works. Although I do like the fact that they showed his homemade outfit, because unfortunately, to my mind, that costume is basically the whole goal of the film for Peter Parker, which, shouldn't be that, because I think Peter Parker needs to strive, at least in this iteration of the character in the film, to being more true to himself and not having to rely on a suit.
He really is one of the few superheroes, I think, where he truly is more of himself when he's not in costume, I think, as opposed to Batman.
Exactly.
Social media and fandom, specifically Twitter, of course, what are you seeing out there as far as Star Wars, reactions to The Last Jedi, things of that nature?
It seems like people are pretty excited about it. I was actually just watching some of the stuff on the Vanity Fair stuff, just did a huge spread on it. But it seems interesting. I'm trying to stay away from it a little bit, only because I just don't want anything to be ruined. They don't seem to be releasing that much, but it seems like in every trailer that comes out, someone puts out a 40-minute YouTube video explaining every item in every corner of every frame. But I'm trying to stay away from that. It looks compelling. It looks interesting. I'm pretty excited about it. In the past, they usually, whenever they would release a new one, people would play hashtag games to come up with their name for the new movie. But I think I haven't seen anything kind of blow up like that recently. But it seems like there's some good buzz going on.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So sometimes we are a discerning fandom, and we like what we like, and we're very passionate about it and very protective of it. But at least on my feeds, that I'm not really seeing a lot, and this is for anyone. I'm not really seeing a lot of the angst that sometimes you see when there are new reveals about Star Wars.
I think people are pretty comfortable with Force Awakens. At least I liked it. Is that the general consensus with you guys?
Absolutely.
So
for sure.
I think the angst was what was going to happen after that second trilogy. I think probably people were pretty nervous, but I think J.J. Abrams in The Force Awakens, they did a great job, and I think people just got re-excited about it. I know I did.
For sure. So among the many potential topics that you and I discussed before we actually had you on the show this evening is Jar Jar Binks, and I'm fascinated, and you didn't reveal too much, which is cool because then we can talk more about it on the show. What are your overall feelings with Jar Jar? Because obviously when it comes to some negative talk, and we definitely stay away from negative talk on the show, but he's probably one of the more maligned characters in Star Wars, but what do you think about him?
I think he's misunderstood. No, I don't want your fan base to hate me, so I'm not gonna say good things about him.
I think more people that listen to our show are not anti-Jar Jar. I think that's maybe safe to say.
I remember seeing all the original movies, and my I want to say my somewhat dislike for those three movies, 1, 2, and 3, came after the fact. Like I remember seeing The Phantom Menace, and I enjoyed it. I was so excited to see it. So I think in Clone Wars, I think the first time I saw it, it was to me it's a little bit unwatchable now. To me it just didn't touch on the things that the original trilogy did, and the third one was the best of those three. But Jar Jar, to me, I always looked at it as how it was intended. It was really just like George Lucas trying to do something completely different. Right? It was just completely the first fully animated, the digitally created character, and it seemed like no matter what language he gives any one of his characters, Watto or any of those, like there's someone figures out that there's probably some racial stereotype and then attacks them. And I don't think those are the intentions. So people always go off on these tangents with some of these characters. But it was a goofball thing. But I mean, you had so much seriousness in that movie that I could see where they were trying to make some comic relief.
Shakespearean, you have to add a little bit of levity because there's so much heavy. And we saw in the Vanity Fair article that Ryan Johnson said I put some of that in there because there's some heavy stuff that goes on. And Star Wars is supposed to be fun and light, and we don't want people to lose sight of that. And I think that Jar Jar very much served that role. I've said it often on the show and off the air. My kids love Jar Jar. Kids growing up with Jar Jar don't understand the criticism. And Ryder and Matt, you guys are dads. I mean, how do your kids feel about Jar Jar?
That's exactly right, and I feel like I'm defending Jar Jar quite a bit. I was at a dental convention a few weeks ago, and a couple of my friends started bagging on the Phantom Menace and Jar Jar, and I really get angry when that happens. But yeah, my kids love Jar Jar. They think he's funny. I mean, he's the fool. He's the fool from, I guess maybe Shakespeare plays, and he was there to show that Anakin and Qui-Gon had sympathy and empathy for these, what they would be termed like lesser people, lesser creatures in the universe. So sort of purpose. I get that he can be annoying sometimes. My wife can't stand him, but my kids and my nieces and nephews think he's hilarious. And so that's the point.
Yeah. Part of my, when I saw Star Wars, I was 7, right? So, and imagine, so when you're watching The Phantom Menace and an adult's reaction to Jar Jar, who grew up with the original Star Wars, I think there is friction there. But then if you kind of step back and think, oh, wait a minute, maybe he made this movie for the people who are 7 now, yeah. and this isn't even for me. I mean, it is, but it isn't, but it's, and, from that point of view, he, re-energize that fan base that are young, and then they grow with the franchise, So, I guess when you kind of look at it that way, I think that's where some of the disappointment. It wasn't as evolved or as mature as we were, but it was made for, I think, for the younger folks to kind of re-embrace and then grow from there.
It was made for the younger folks, but I do like the fact how Lucas escalated Jar Jar to serve as this tipping point to carry the story forward. I mean, if it weren't for Jar Jar, the Jedi conceivably could still exist as an order, and the Republic would have still been a republic. And I liked how Lucasfilm sort of brought everything full circle in the pages of the final volume of the Aftermath trilogy by Chuck Wendig, and one of those little interludes was Jar Jar, and he was just sort of either ignored or reviled or just viewed with pathetic scorn for what he'd done to the galaxy.
Grace is how they made him very, very tragic.
Well, he was bullied. Jar Jar was the character who was bullied, and he was doing what he thought was best for everybody, and I think he was used, he was exploited, and that's sad. Given considering how we were introduced to him, because he was almost comedy relief.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like sometimes we have a tendency as we get older to think that as we mature and our tastes evolve and grow and become more adult, as it were, that we feel like our childhood fandoms need to do that as well. But I feel like for them to continually, perpetually be a part of the zeitgeist of fandom and popular culture, they need to continually tap into what originally was appealing in the first place, that speaking to the 12-year-old in each of us and the joy that brings. Doesn't mean you can't have heavier themes and moments and concepts, because there is no Coffee with Kenobi without some sort of analytical approach. But I think overall, I feel like we're seeing that people are more open, as you mentioned at the top of the segment, Jeff.
Yeah. So I'm excited more for the moving forward. 7 to 7, 8, 9. I always felt like 1, 2, and 3 were like, like in your family, you always hear about these stories and and things that your grandpa did or something. And then, and it's always better in the mythos of just the stories that were passed along at dinner or stuff like that. And then when, lo and behold, you actually find them, and they never live up to what you thought they were or could have been. Like that's how I feel about like 1, 2, and 3. It's just like the thought of what it could have been is better than what they were. Yeah. And, but that's why I'm excited. Like, I'd rather just move forward and not know what's coming. So
I've always, not always, but I love 1, 2, and 3. And like when people criticize it now, it still will, like you said, Ryder, kind of will take me aback. Like, really? You don't appreciate, this part of the evolution, the mythos of the Jedi, the lightsaber, the Force, there's so much we learned about this world because of the prequels. And speaking of this world of Star Wars, the day the show is released is the 40th anniversary of Star Wars. I know we're gonna let you go here in a few minutes, but any thoughts on the 40th anniversary of Star Wars, Jeff?
Yeah, I don't believe it could be 40 because if I do the math, then that would put me a lot older than I want to be. So it's amazing to me just how it has kind of just continued and persevered and continuously reinvents itself. So the only place I failed as a parent was getting my girls to sort of like Star Wars, but I failed with any of that genre. But just to see my cousins and my nephews and stuff like that, and be able to share with them and just see like how much they love it, and it just as much as I did when I was a kid, and it's really pretty cool. And I'm excited because it's not over yet. And I've heard it's kind of just starting again, right?
And you're right. And for the record, officially, all four of us are very interested, Gillette, if you want to fly any of us out to London again for something for The Last Jedi.
Yep.
We're all available.
I'll clear the schedule today.
There you go. Matt,
I'm in.
I'm totally in. Let's do it. This is happening.
All right, I love it. Jeff, tell us, if you will, really quickly about hashtag Roundup and how people can get involved with that.
Oh, sure, yeah. Hashtag Roundup. It's a Twitter on Twitter, and then also we have an app called hashtag Roundup. And what hashtag Roundup is it's sort of like if you think about like an entertainment TV channel on Twitter. But what we do is we release original content in the form of hashtags. And we release them about every couple hours, new ones throughout the day, every day. And, they're pretty popular. Any given time, probably at least 1, 2, sometimes 3 of the top 10 trends in the United States originated from hashtag Roundup. It's actually, we have a Star Wars one tonight that starts in 13 minutes. It's a Star Wars themed one. You can check that out. But they're fun. Like we did redneck summer rituals today. You can't fix that, stuff like that. Describe impeachment badly. So it's like sometimes they're political, sometimes they're just silly. And it just gives people a way to kind of create content on Twitter and be part of a community of people kind of doing the same thing at the same time. And, a good way to meet people and have fun.
It's hilarious, and it is very engaging. Coffee with Kenobi was involved a month and a half ago. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that was fun.
That was great. We actually, if you're interested in building up your Twitter followers, your Twitter presence, hashtag Roundup is an amazing way to do that. Plus, as you said, you get to meet a lot of really, really great people. So, Jeff, where can people find you online, and are there any other projects coming soon that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm Big Macher. It's BIGMACHER or hashtag Roundup. I'm tweeting a lot, and we're just doing a lot on Twitter. That's probably the big stuff I've got still going on. Just building that up and living the dream.
There you go. Well, we will include links to all of that in the show notes as always. Jeff, thank you for coming on the show. Look forward to having you on as a guest co-host in the future.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
And when we return, we'll have Tom Gross joining us to do the news. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Coffee with Kenobi. Coffee with Kenobi.
There's no better time to start downloading the Star Wars digital card trader collecting from Topps than the 40th anniversary of Star Wars. Recent editions include many homages to the original trilogy, especially iconic art and imagery from Star Wars A New Hope. One thing I also love about the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app is that it features incredible images from many aspects of the saga, including the original trilogy, the prequels, the Clone Wars, Rebels, The Force Awakens, and Rogue One. It's also really easy to get into. Your favorite Star Wars characters, scenes, and moments are in every single pack, After you download it, you're going to open the app each day and you're going to get free credits to spend on card packs from the Cantina. Plus, if you can't get what you're looking for, there's a place where you can trade with your friends as you complete your Stars collection, and it's all free. And for experienced collectors, there are exclusive cards, special inserts, and even autograph opportunities. Don't worry about missing the cards you want either and the sets that you're looking forward to collecting, because you can sign up for notifications right on the app. Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps can be downloaded for free from iTunes or Google Play. Be sure to download the app and start your collection today. The Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps is available right now, and remember, these are the cards you're looking for. Joins us with news. And Tom, it's good to have you back. Last week I took the reins over for a little bit, but no one steers the news quite like you. So what do you have for us today?
Well, thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. And hello, everybody. Annie Leibovitz's portfolio pictures for The Last Jedi were released on VanityFair.com Thursday in a preview we've all been waiting for. Joanna Robinson's interview with Pablo Hidalgo, along with Leibovitz's photos, gave us just enough to chew on for the early summer months. For example, Hidalgo previews that we'll see a certain population in the galaxy that have found a way to live outside or above the galactic conflict, and Robinson juxtaposes a Leibovitz photo titled Night Creatures alongside this passage. It is also previewed that we may see a more human side to the First Order's Captain Phasma, as well as a new weapon as seen in Leibovitz's photos, which has no name quite yet, according to Hidalgo, but its origins will be explored in the upcoming Marvel comic series in September. So what in these articles stands out as revealing or even confounding to you?
Well, there's that synergy that we've been talking about with the story group, both on this show and just in other places. And the fact that there's always a story. Now, I've always said that if you're going to tell these extra stories, make sure that there's a purpose, not just to sell a couple of comics or a couple of novels or a couple of thousands or millions, as it were. But it sounds intriguing. Pablo's process for naming these things, he's one of the major ones, people to take part in that. Of course, he's not the sole one, but he does a lot of them. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in seeing, we talked about before, kind of the different populations in the different segments. Pablo told kind of quite a bit in this article. I think the main thing that he shared was when they look at the lightsaber in Lucasfilm, they don't identify it as Anakin's lightsaber anymore. It's Rey's lightsaber. That's pretty huge.
Yeah, that was interesting because around my house, we've kind of been in between on, we have lightsaber fights quite a bit, and we have an old, what used to be Luke's lightsaber, and now we have started calling it Rey's lightsaber because it just feels right now. And we have a green one, and that's Luke. So I guess this just all makes sense, and it feels right now.
I see this almost as a literal passing of the torch. Not just in terms of the lightsaber itself, but in the focus of the story onto the next generation. And to have Pablo come out and address that directly and so forthrightly, as opposed to maybe, talking in circles, says a lot to the importance of this decision and this move.
I've got the master replica Anakin Skywalker lightsaber behind me right now. No, not that anyone can see it, but I still... Even having it, and when I purchased it, it was labeled Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber, but I still have the hardest time not saying it's Luke's, just because that's what I've known for now 40 years. But I love the fact that it's Rey's, and the fact that they are saying, no, this is the thing, as you said, Matt, this is the passing of the torch, this is where we're going. So now I've got Rey's lightsaber in my office.
Yeah, I have to say, when it comes to the lightsabers, I'm glad that every time we hold that one, we don't have to go through the whole history. As much fun as it is, we don't have to go through the whole background of, well, no, wait, this was so-and-so, and then this was Luke, and then now it's Rey. So we can for sure say whose it is. But how about the images? What are your thoughts on these images? Stunning, of course, but any other thoughts on that?
I love that photograph of Rey and Chewbacca in the cockpit of the Falcon, because it struck me at first with like, oh, that's where Han should sit, but you know what? Rey, I think, is going to be the sort of new partner to Chewbacca, and it's nice because I like how they've kind of melded within Rey the notion of both Luke and Han. Kind of melding into this one sort of super character and fitting this role, but not replacing them, obviously.
Yeah,
and of course,
I
also like the fact that it looked like they were about to spend some really, really, really groovy AM drive time stuff for your morning commute.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that she's in the captain's chair, and it seemed somewhat symbolic that she's kind of the captain of this new trilogy. I don't know if that's totally true, but she seems to kind of be the lead character, and the captain of the Falcon. I mean, those are big shoes to fill, big seat to fill.
Well, they pretty much.
But I think if anybody could fill it, it's going to be her. It's going to be Rey.
For sure.
Well, we'll all be able to continue to analyze all those photos and everything else. The Vanity Fair summer issue hits the newsstands in New York and LA on June 1st and nationally on June 6th. But fans who want the full Star Wars experience can order now on VanityFair.com and get all 4 covers, a commemorative poster, early digital editions with lightsaber effects by Industrial Light and Magic, or you can purchase them individually. So lots of cool stuff available right now, or you can wait for the news about a week for the newsstands.
What's the poster? Is it just kind of a blend of the four covers?
Oh, you know what? I looked at it and now it's escaping me. I can check here really quickly.
That's exactly what it is. I've got it up.
Okay.
Full disclosure, I subscribe to that.
You know what? It's not a bad deal, to be honest with you, when you look at that. But in other news from the Star Wars galaxy, StarWars.com reports that Marvel Comics will be releasing 2 new Star Wars stories this August. Mace Windu will get a 5-issue miniseries titled Star Wars Jedi of the Republic, Mace Windu, that picks up just after the Clone War begins. Matt Owens and Dennis Cowan will join forces to tell the story of how Mace Windu and the Jedi find their role as peacekeepers for the galaxy change to being generals in the Army of the Republic. Also in August, writer Dwayne Swerzinski and artist Fernando Blanco tell the story of how Rebellion intelligence officer Cassian Andor meets Imperial security droid K2SO. This story, aptly named Star Wars Rogue One, Cassian and K2SO, will be told in a one-shot 40-page comic. Great stuff coming from Marvel Comics, to be sure. But Matt, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this news.
Yeah, speaking of CW, that's our new hashtag, CWK Synergy, because we've got Matt Moore on when there are announcements for new comic books in the Star Wars universe. Couldn't be more perfect.
I think the one thing that's got me really stoked about the Mace Windu miniseries is this is the perfect character, and the way they have titled this miniseries, it's not just going to be all Mace all the time. I think we're going to see a lot of other Jedi and other characters from the prequel trilogy era, from that Attack of the Clones era and that Clone Wars era, coming in and out of these pages. Of course, for someone like me, that means Ahsoka lives, I would think, in these pages. And of course, with the Rogue One shot, as I like to term them, the comics are a perfect vehicle for expanding upon the films, and as well as the stuff that's in other media, whether it's in the novels or short stories or upcoming TV shows, if any, to help fill in some of the backstory, if you will. It's and a 40-page one shot in this case, that's perfect, because we're going to be able to see this stuff, and it's going to give new context to Rogue One, for example. And of course, I think we're going to see going forward, as the Last Jedi, we've got, coming in September is the Captain Phasma miniseries that was announced at Celebration Orlando, and that's going to help sort of build up to the debut of the Last Jedi film in December. And of course, once that film comes out, I think we'll probably see some more comics, whether it's 4 or 5 issue miniseries or a couple of one shots, maybe perhaps adding some backstory and context to the events of the Last Jedi. I mean, this might be, I could easily already right now see a DJ one shot focused on Benicio del Toro's character, for example.
Oh, inevitably, and maybe some sort of thing about what happened with Luke's lightsaber. That might be a whole other. That's a mythology unto itself, I'm quite certain. I wonder how much of the Tartakovsky, the Clone Wars Tartakovskys, the shorter ones that came out much before Dave Filoni was a part of the animated Star Wars universe. There's that one that's my favorite, I believe it's from the first season, where it's just Mace Windu basically taking on a battalion of battle droids by himself. And the cover for the first issue reminded me of that episode. I wonder how much we'll see of that.
You know, we love those Tartakovsky Clone Wars at our house. My kids, I mean, they love Rebels and the Clone Wars cartoon. But, man, whenever they want to watch some quick Star Wars, we throw those DVDs in, and they are awesome. My kids are, like, just mesmerized by them. And that is a good episode with Mace Windu.
And by the way, the best version of Grievous, I think, out there, too.
Yeah.
Oh, that is the watershed version of Grievous,
He's
to
like
my mind.
The Terminator in it, really.
And see, the Clone Wars, whether it's the original, the little shorts, all the way to the very long and detailed series that Filoni wrote, that was my kids' entree into Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
You would think, oddly enough, I never watched it when it first came out because I was like, it's kind of cool, but I'll stick with my Star Wars. And then my kids, when we moved back to the States, they started watching it. And I got hooked to the point that we were every night sitting down watching an episode and comparing notes. And as a result of the Clone Wars, that's what really, I would say, reawakened my force for Star Wars.
All right. Well, finally, if you've visited StarWars.com recently, there's a plethora of 40th anniversary information going on there. But what caught my eye, of course, is the merchandise. The Disney Store is releasing several exclusive memorabilia, including a 40th anniversary micro 2.5-inch Tsum Tsum set, including R2-D2, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia. Also, you can find a Star Wars A New Hope Han Solo and Luke Skywalker Elite Series 6-inch die-cast action figures, a 40th anniversary limited edition pin set, anniversary limited edition lithograph set, and a very cool 40th anniversary limited edition ornament set that includes R2 and 3PO, X-Wings pilot Luke Skywalker, award ceremony Leia, smuggler Han Solo firing his blaster, Chewbacca's in there, and of course, the ornament that always says Happy Holidays, Darth Vader with his lightsaber drawn. All right, guys, if you check these out online, pie in the sky. If you could have one of these, which would it be?
Okay, I'll go first. I'm going to say the Tsum Tsums. I'm sorry, my kids love these dang Zooms. We have so many of those suckers all over the house. It's unbelievable. And they are pretty cool. They're pretty funny. So, we make a lot of Tsum Tsum towers. We make like little videos on like iPads with them and stuff. So I'd probably go with those.
What about you?
Ryder, you're dead to me.
You can make fun of me now. Yes. Send your emails to Dan at Coffee with Kenobi. I don't know.
No, Ryder, I'm totally with you. I have two girls, 10 and 6, and they've infested the house. For anybody, they are super cute if you're into that, and so yeah, that would definitely be the household choice around here.
I was a little underwhelmed by some of these images. I guess I don't know what I picture in my mind, but the 40th anniversary, I feel like there should be something that really blows me away. And there's really nothing that is hitting me. They're basically doing variations on what they already have, which makes sense. It's obviously done well for them. If I were to pick one thing, though, I'd get the 40th anniversary lithograph set. I'm not sure what the scale is on these, but there's some really great images of a lot of the classic posters over the years.
That's the one that I would go with. I love, that was one of the things that I really liked about Star Wars Celebration. They had, I think, what's the original poster for the Chinese market, I think it was. I do like these lithographs because, when I was 7 when Star Wars came out, and I was living in Germany, so I remember Krieg der Sterne. That's how I had always referred to Star Wars until I was corrected one day. Somebody on post going, no, it's actually Star Wars. Well, okay, that's fine too. But those lithographs, I think, they've got a nice quality to them, and plus they have that that 70s sensibility, or not so much sensibility. Any decade that introduced the pantsuit is not sensible, but the fact that they it has that 70s vibe, it does appeal to that nostalgia within me, and that's something that I really do like a lot. So that would have to be my pick. Otherwise, I am with Dan on this. Nothing really jumped out at me. And Ryder, you're still dead to me.
Buy a Tsum Tsum, Matt. It'll bring joy to your life.
I have enough joy in my life. Thank you.
Well, I gave my family's choice, but I personally like the pin set. I'm kind of a fan of those lapel pins, and I just think those are really cool. I like the detail on all three of the characters that are in that pin set, and then of course the 40th anniversary logo on the fourth pin. I like those personally.
I am sort of a sucker.
Those are good looking. I will admit.
They're nice. I mean, none of them are bad. It's just I want to be wowed. I think I don't know. I'm sort of hoping the next time I'm in a Disney store, because there is not one in the area where I live, if there are still some of those Christmas ornaments, just because something about Star Wars and Christmas makes me very, very happy. I think I would probably get that just to add a few more Star Wars ornaments on the tree, but that's probably about it.
I also like the box those ornaments come in, though. That's kind of cool, too.
I do like that. I'm noticing when I go into stores, they basically have the same stuff that's out, but they put that silver 40th anniversary sticker on it, and all of a sudden I think, I must have that.
All right. Well, gentlemen, Matt and Ryder and Dan, that is the news for this week. I hope you all enjoy the 40th anniversary of Star Wars, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you, sir. We will take a break and be back with a conversation about 40 years of Star Wars. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
You're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. Coffee with Kenobi.
We are proud to be sponsored by the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and much more. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. The day this show is released is the anniversary of 40 years of Star Wars, an automatic topic for the Coffee Chat segment. For me, there are so many ways we can go with this conversation. For me, Star Wars at 40 years means family and memories. Some of these I've shared many times on the show, but just seeing it for the first time and what that did with me and my family, and then finding myself in Penny's or Sears and finding Star Wars figures and not really knowing who all of them were, because I got the figures, I got the C-3PO before I even saw the film. And I've said many times, I thought that he was a character from Logan's Run when I saw him for the first time. He was not, fortunately. There's so many things about this franchise that conjures up memories of family and love and friendship, and I think that is mirrored very much in the films. The collecting and what Star Wars collecting has brought to my fandom, and so many memories I have with so many items, who I was with when I got them, or kind of the thrill of the hunt as we would go together at 5 and 6 in the morning to Target or Walmart or whatever for something, anywhere from a figure to a t-shirt to, Ryder, I'm sure you remember when they very first had Star Wars toothbrushes. Not very first, the originals were back during Return of the Jedi. But I'm talking about the more recent incarnation of them over the past 5-6 years. I remember they were so hard to find. I went everywhere for them. It's just become so much fun. So what about you guys? I'm going to borrow from Starship Sabers and Scoundrels, their most recent show. It was a very fun show. If you don't subscribe to their show, you need to do so now. But they basically brought up different topics, really quick little hits about 40 years of Star Wars. So we'll go through that. But for you two, what does it mean, 40 years of Star Wars, just overall?
Well, I can't remember my life without Star Wars. I was born about a year and a half before A New Hope came out, and it's always been a part of my life. I can remember going to The Empire Strikes Back in the theater just tons of times. I remember looking forward to, when I was 7, going to see Return of the Jedi. And I can't imagine my life without Star Wars, because so many different points in my life and momentous points in my life have been centered around Star Wars, or that occurred at the same times that, Star Wars movies came out. I graduated college the same year the Phantom Menace came out, and I started dental school that year. And I remember all that. I remember going to get in line for tickets at 4 a.m. And, I wouldn't have certain friends that I have now. I mean, you guys included, and I wouldn't have, I wouldn't be podcasting, wouldn't be writing blogs, and my world wouldn't have been opened up without Star Wars. And as sappy and weird as that sounds, it's true. I met you guys because I went to a panel on Star Wars at Salt Lake Comic-Con, and I heard about Full of Sith, and then in turn I heard about Coffee with Kenobi, and that just set me up to know that there were other people out there that love Star Wars as much as I do, and I'd never met people that love Star Wars as much as I do until that point. So Star Wars, I mean, as weird as it sounds to have a movie be that important in my life, it is. It's been a huge part of my life.
I can remember a time when there was no Star Wars, and that was filled with Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon and Space 1999. But since 1977, I mean, Star Wars, it's been a part of my life since I was 7 years old when it came out. And, I have those memories. I mean, for example, I may have said this before on a previous episode, I don't know or not, but, I first, I was aware of when it came out. I was aware of when it was being shot, actually, because we were living in Huntington Beach, California in 1976. And so, I have vague memories of my mom and dad talking, they're making this really great science fiction film, because my mom was really into science fiction and still is. And for some reason, when we were living in Germany, we weren't able to see it for the first 2 years. But that didn't stop me from just falling head over heels for Star Wars. I mean, my room was covered with these posters. I had the sheets. We had just all the magazines, the Starlog special issues, and the novelization and the Star Wars comics. And then I got my first 2 action figures. I think we were on a Rhine River cruise for the day with my mom and I, and we stopped in this little German town and had gone into like the Altstadt where the square was, and there was a little German toy shop, and they had this small little display of Krieg der Sterne action figures, and she bought me Luke Skywalker and R2-D2, and I love the heck out of those. And then, my grandparents sent me Star Wars toys from the States for Christmases and birthdays, and it just was always part of my life. And even during the sort of the dark times, when there was no Star Wars, and but until Timothy Zahn's first volume of the Heir to the Empire came out, it was still something that you could bond over, and it still is. I mean, I've made a bunch of new friends, Ryder, Dan, yourselves included, and that's helped a lot. But it's also kind of been part of that glue that's kept me in touch with my very scant few older friends. I mean, there are still times I will be sitting here at 11:30 at evening, and I'll text my high school buddy out back in Colorado and say, I'm watching the Clone Wars. Isn't it cool that, we'd have these significantly long discussions about what the Clone Wars may have been like, and now we can just watch them whenever we want. So, and, I feel that way again, especially, was, as the buildup was announced when they, when Disney bought Lucasfilm and they said, we're making more Star Wars movies, and then, that inexorable march toward The Force Awakens began, and it seemed like it would never get here. And then there I was sitting in the theater the night before the official release with my son, and it just then those theater lights went dark, and up it came. It was like, and there was the crawl, and I was just I think I held my breath through the entirety of the film. And I love that feeling. I love that notion, and I love the fact that Star Wars is back again. Yeah, it's a little over the top and a little too pervasive nowadays, but you know what? That's a great problem to have.
Right, and it's just kind of the nature of our world anyway. I mean, when anything you like or interested in, no matter what the topic, it's going to be in your face, because I mean, it's social media, it's merchandise, it's culture. And Star Wars has been a part of all that, and really Star Wars started just about all of the trends I mentioned, not social media, of course, but the Star Wars presence on social media is huge. And a lot of us in fandom know each other because of that. And it's because of a love for a boy that is with his aunt and uncle. He doesn't know his parents, and he feels like there's something greater than himself that he is meant to be a part of, but he doesn't really know how to access that. I think it's just a beautiful metaphor for adolescence, for high school, for college, for any of us who feel like there's something else out there that I'm supposed to do. And it doesn't always have to be as grandiose as blowing up the Death Star, but there's so much about Star Wars that keeps bringing me back, and it's those timeless themes that are encapsulated in that original poster, the artwork, the 40 years, the logo for the 40 years with the classic with Luke with the lightsaber aloft, similar to Excalibur, and he's got Leia at his side as the dashing princess. It's just something that just gives you these sensations. And so tomorrow, or I should say when the show is released, the 40th anniversary, there's just going to be a lot of fun discussion points. And I'm just going to throw out a couple of firsts for all of you. Tell me, obviously first we're talking about Star Wars A New Hope, but maybe real quick, first memories of seeing the first film for the first time.
I remember seeing it on a VHS tape. My dad had recorded it from HBO, and I remember the old HBO, whatever it was, animation going into the logo, and then Star Wars starting that. Now. Yeah, and so that's what I remembered. I don't know. That was, you guys might know better than me, like 1981 or something like that it came out. So there's a chance I may remember seeing Empire Strikes Back before seeing A New Hope. I don't know. My parents say they took me to see Star Wars in the theaters, but yeah, that's what I remember right now.
My first time seeing it, like I said, I was aware of it and I was completely fluent in it, but I didn't see it until I had come home for the summer to visit my grandmother and grandfather, my aunt and uncle in Ashland, Kentucky in 1979. And it was still playing. It had been out for 2 years and it was still in theaters. And my aunt took me on a warm summer night to the drive-in to see it. And it was in her blue 74 Dodge Dart. And, and I can still feel the humidity in the air around me as I sat on the hood of her car, and, and I can hear the sounds of the frogs and the insects calling back to each other in the trees. And my aunt she still marvels with this, because she says, I was sitting there and, sitting next to you and leaning up against the car, and you'd never seen it before, but you knew every line in the script. You were sitting there just mouthing every word, and you were just moving so slowly yet methodically, putting one popcorn kernel, chewing it, then putting another popcorn kernel in your mouth and chewing it, and your eyes never once left the screen. And then when the movie ended, I looked at her and said, "Are they going to show it again? Because I really want to see it again." And they showed it again, and so we just stayed. And I think we watched it 2 or 3 times that night. And this is back when you just paid your admission. You were in. You could stay as often as you wanted to. And
the rewatchability, I think, of Star Wars, the fact that the original cinematic release, it was in theaters for a year. I know that's part of that is the time, and it's not like you could watch something like that on your phone, or it even would have been thought of at the time. But there's just so much about the history and the lore of Star Wars and the rewatchability of it. By the way, I looked up really quickly. It was February 1st, 1983 that Star Wars first came out on HBO.
Okay. I remember anytime, because we had HBO when it first started, but then, anytime they showed a Star Wars movie on HBO, I would stop what I was doing and watch. And then when I bought them on VHS, I watched, I think I went through 3 copies of each film. I watched them so much. And then
VHS right here. I mean, that's.
I still, as do I. I've got the original edition on VHS, and I bought the laser discs. I don't have a laser disc player because I figured, one day I'll get a laser disc player and I'll be able to watch Star Wars. They're sitting on the shelf next to the original vinyl soundtracks to each of the films, and I'm still the same way. Now, when I work from home, I'm fortunate enough to get to work from home a lot when I need to, and I'll sit in my study and I'll fire up one of the Star Wars films on the monitor behind me, and and I'll work, and I'll just every now and then I'll take a break and lean back and just watch. Oh, this is a good scene. I remember. Oh, this is awesome. And to the point, my kids will come in. "Are you watching Star Wars again?" What do you mean? What do you hush that dirty mouth of yours. So, what else would I watch?
Well,
that's
it was also a drive-in, and I remember, like, I love how you remember all the senses that it appealed to you when you first saw Star Wars. I literally remember when it started. Before it started, there was like this very crude animated short. It must have been something local. I have no idea because I saw it in Louisiana for the first time in New Orleans, and the first thing before it was a little short called Bambi versus Godzilla, and there was this tranquil scene of this small, crude-looking animated deer.
Oh my gosh, Dan! They had that on mine.
Yeah.
They had that on mine.
Little legs stepping down and smashing him, and that was the end of it. And I remember thinking, I don't think I quite appreciated humor the way I do now, because all I wanted to do was see Star Wars, because I had tried 4 or 5 different occasions to see it, and every time I went to see it, it was sold out, and we weren't allowed to see PG movies. So my cousin, who was probably about 10 years older than me, had told my mom, hey, you know what, I know they don't see PG movies, but this is okay. There's a little bit of shooting, but there's no blood, and it's just with lasers, and it's not scary, and I think that the boys will like it. And love it, we did, and still do. And that's, again, the sensations of the first one. And going to Burger King and get those Burger King Star Wars glasses, which are still one of my very favorite pieces of my collection, and just the iconography again of these films are just, we could go on, and we do every week here on Coffee with Kenobi, every month on Comics with Kenobi, and Idiots Array is you guys are by
every 2 weeks, yeah.
Right, so see, you've got plenty of options to choose from. Be sure to share your favorite Star Wars memories with us at 40. Anything before we close this segment out that either of you really want to add, whether it be about a collectible, a book, a video game, or an event?
Well, my favorite part of Star Wars is just the memories that it makes. And, I never thought I would get to take my kids to see a Star Wars movie in the theaters. And then when Disney bought Lucasfilm, that made it possible. And I can remember taking my kids, we drove like 40 minutes to see the first teaser trailer for The Force Awakens, and then taking them to see The Force Awakens. And I had tears in my eyes just because I got to take my kids to see Star Wars. And that's something I never thought would happen. So, Star Wars matters, and it's important. It seems silly, but it's an escape from real life, and it is what, memories are made of quite often.
It's not.
It is.
It's a good, healthy escape, and it brings people together.
It does. And, and a perfect way to illustrate that is, right before Disney bought Lucasfilm, if you'll recall, Lucasfilm re-released The Phantom Menace in 3D to theaters. I think it was for a week. And I saw that. And so the only time that I could go was on a school day, like at 11 in the morning. So I went and drove to my son's school. I think he was in first grade. And I went to the office and I'm here to check my son out. Oh, does he have an appointment? I said, yes, we're going to go see Star Wars, The Phantom Menace. I don't think that's allowable. I don't care. and so the principal came out and he was a Star Wars fan. He goes, I understand completely. Hold on. I said, he goes, let me page him. I don't know where, they're in between classes. So we'll have to page him through the halls. And it was great because, the principal got there and said, Jerry Moore, please come to the office. Your father's here to take you out of school so that you may go see Star Wars in 3D. And when I could just hear this, oh, I'm so jealous. So,
the only thing that could make that story better would be if the principal was sitting in between the two of you eating popcorn.
Exactly. Of course, a year later, I think I did it again, and we went to go see Raiders of the Lost Ark when they re-released Raiders of the Lost Ark in IMAX. So.
Awesome. Those are the things that count. I took the boys. That was the first Star Wars film they'd seen in theaters, The Phantom Menace, and it was in 3D. That was the first Star Wars movie that my wife had seen on the big screen. And I remember thinking, well, this is The Phantom Menace. I wonder how she's going to feel about this one. Because, I love The Phantom Menace, but it's not like I'm showing her A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back right off the bat. But she was captivated. And when Qui-Gon meets his end, courtesy of Darth Maul, she looked at me and she said, oh, no. And she was actually invested. Now, that isn't the 40th anniversary, per se, but it is there because Star Wars is ultimately why I love going to the theater to see movies, because of my memories of seeing Star Wars, A New Hope, in theaters and what that led to. It's become an event. When the special editions came out, I waited in line for hours too for that, and I remember when they opened the doors, everybody was marching in, and I remember someone working there that was cleaning up behind the counter, and she said out loud, "Oh, please, it's just a movie," just like that. And I'm thinking, but do you see what's going on right now? I mean, look at these people. This isn't just a movie. This is a movement. This is a community, as Matt, as you said, I'm just going to say you've coined, because every time I say Star Wars is a community, I think of you saying that, and I think it's very true. It's beautiful. We're very happy that we're able to talk about 40 years of Star Wars, and who knows where we will be as a fandom, as a franchise, as a mythology when it comes to Star Wars at 50. But it'll be a lot of fun. So we're going to go ahead and take a break and return with your emails, tweets, and Facebook posts. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
You're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. Coffee with Kenobi.
Before we get to email, I want to thank our CWK sponsors, the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. Please support them the way they support our podcast, and remember to listen to new and archived shows of Coffee with Kenobi wherever you listen to podcasts, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you enjoy listening to your favorite shows. And if you listen to the show through iTunes, please leave us a review. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest, and we'd love for you to check us out there. I'm really wanting to pump up our Instagram following, because I feel like there's a lot there. Be sure to listen to our CWK family of shows too, including Legends Library, Rebels Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia. From Dan Nelson, he posted on our CWK Facebook page a video of construction going on at Disneyland, on Star Wars Land, and I encourage you all to go to the CWK Facebook page, like it if you haven't already, and then after you've done that, look at the video, because you can see the Matterhorn in the distance, and Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and then you've got these massive structures, multi-leveled steel leveled structures. There's a lot of activity. I feel like seeing that, even though there's nothing distinctively Star Wars, just seeing these huge, massive things being built at Disneyland, that just does something to me. I think when Star Wars Land is open, that's probably going to impact me as much as anything Star Wars ever has.
Yeah, I just got back from Disneyland 2 weeks ago, and they kind of had that partitioned off, but you could kind of peek over and see some stuff, and I can't wait to go back. And that's already got my wife sold on going back, so can't wait.
Yeah, that's what we're planning.
I texted you and I was harassing you, like, I'm at Disneyland.
No, there's no harassment at all.
That's what we're planning for Celebration 2019, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be in Anaheim, and sort of a soft launch of Star Wars Land, and the entire family is going to go to that, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And if what they're doing with Pandora is any indication, it's going to be amazing.
A huge thanks to Ryder Waldron and Matt Moore for joining me today. Let everyone know where they can find you, and please feel free to plug any projects you both have in the works.
So I'm on Twitter at Ryder Waldron DDS. I don't talk about dentistry too much, so mostly Star Wars. You can listen to me on Idiot's Array, a podcast I do with Alan Zog and Mark Suter. You can find it on iTunes and Libsyn and MakingStarWars.net. And of course, you can read my blogs every month on CoffeeWithKenobi.com.
And you can find me on Twitter at Gorilla Scribe, and that's 2 R's and 2 L's. And I co-host Comics with Kenobi. I co-host Comics with Kenobi with Jeff McGee. I sometimes also contribute to the Coffee with Kenobi website, usually involving stories about sequential art and comic books. And I also co-host Comic Book Noob, which is a podcast that focuses on comic book properties that have been translated into TV and film, and it's geared toward people who may not be too familiar with their original origins.
Wonderful. It was incredible. This is now an official month of the new format. We will be back next week with 2 new co-hosts and more Star Wars. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.